welcome to episode 193 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today I'm going to share with you all the things that I've been working on last year for my Make 9 projects. So normally I share with you what I've been making this week. I thought I'd go and do like an overall video of all the knitting things that I achieved from my Make 9 list from last year. And at the end, I'm going to show you a little brief clip of my son Jensen wearing some crochet and knitwear that he's been gifted. So stay tuned for that if you want to see him in his little outfits. Right, so let's get on with the first of the Make 9 project that I finished last year. So first of all, I made the Mary Margaret's lace tam, and this is such a pretty lace pattern, and it's actually inspired by a hat that was out of the series Once Upon a Time, and I'd been watching that, so I decided that I needed to make this hat. I'd actually seen it from Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful podcast, and that's what made me want to make it. And the pattern is called Mary Margaret's Lace Tam by Mary Elizabeth, and the yarn that I used for this was an Eden Cottage Titus 4-ply, and it was in the Briar Rose colourway. I will leave links in the description bar down below to the companies and the patterns where I can. So basically I kept this exactly the same as the pattern is written, apart from in these diamond shapes here I actually omitted some of the lace out of this bit here because I thought it looked closer to the one that was actually in the series. So I did make a modification there, but the rest of it is exactly the same, and it's beautiful, really soft yarn. There's some silk in it, and I'm going to put it on to show you. This is where everything goes wrong when I'm doing it on the podcast. But there we go. So it's like a tam shape. I like the fact that it's nice and sort of, I don't like the word saggy, but it's got some drape at the back there. And I think that out of hats, this doesn't look too bad on me. I don't really suit hats that much, but they keep you warm, so who cares? Plus it's a lovely way to wear some knitty things that you've made. So here we go. This is what it looks like on. Do excuse my wet hair, it's still not dry yet after I washed it. But hopefully you can see what the hat looks like. Really pleased with how this came out, and actually out of all the hats I've made, this is the one I tend to wear the most. So that's project number 1 completed. The second one on my list was the Mayfield Mitts, and they were finished as well. So these are a lovely pair of mittens with colourwork motifs on the front and on the back as well. It's much easier for me to show you these on the podcast when they're on the blockers rather than my wrists, because it's a nightmare trying to hold my arms up, so I will leave them on the blockers. But I do have some notes on sort of the size and everything. So they were pretty much knitted to how they are written in the pattern. And oh, I should say what the pattern is first. So these are the Mayfield Mitts by Erica Heusser, and the yarn I used is some Rauma Finullgarn in 2 colourways, so it's in a light and a darker sort of pink colour. I did make some modifications to the needles that I used. So the pattern says use 2.25mm needles, and I actually used a 2.5mm needle because I know that I knit colourwork really tightly, and I know that I'd need at least one size more than the pattern suggests. So I went for 2.5mm needles, and they worked nicely. They fit perfect on the hand, although they are slightly tight on the cuff here because they're quite a long mitten. So what actually quite a few people have suggested is that you use a slightly larger needle size just on the cuff bit here, so it fits a bit better just further up your arm. But I can get them on and they are comfortable, so it's not like they're really tight. But I would suggest that it'd be quite a good idea to increase the needle size just for this bottom cuff compared to the rest of it. But I did use 2.5mm needles for the whole of these pair of mittens. So that is my second of my Make 9. I really like the detail across the bottom of the mitten here, and they've got a 1x1 twisted rib to finish the bottom and the top off. And the back is really nice too. I do like the way that it's got just a repeated diamond pattern on the back. Really pretty and really fun to make as well. So that is the second thing I got to show you. So the third thing on my list was the French meringue socks, and this is a pattern by Marianne Heikinen. And these are the completed pair. So I absolutely love these. In fact, I like them so much that I haven't been able to wear them because they're too nice. Does anybody else do that? They have got this gorgeous cable detail along the top of the sock, and they are knitted in a beautiful sock set that I got from West Green Loft Yarns. And I actually picked this up from Fibre East quite a few years ago now, and it had this gorgeous pop of coral for the heel. And I can't remember whether this heel was in the pattern actually, but it's a slip stitch heel, and it's the same heels that as I've written in my simple sock pattern, which is a free sock pattern, which is a top down sock pattern. If anyone's interested, I'll leave a link to that in the description bar down below. But oh, I love those cables, absolutely beautiful, and in combination with this speckled yarn I think it works really nicely. I had a 50-gram sock set, so a 50-gram of the main colour and 20-gram of the contrast, so I did a slightly shorter foot so that I'd have plenty for both socks. So there we go, that is the third item from my Make 9 list from last year. Really pleased about that. The fourth item on my Make 9 list I'm actually wearing, so actually I'm clashing a bit with the dusky pink of the hat and a slightly different shade of dusky pink of my cardigan. But this is the Sparkle cardigan, and it's a really nice pattern by Locatelli, and there's a nice lacy detail all over the cardigan. I did make some modifications in that I made the sleeves shorter, and I also did the body slightly cropped as well so that I could wear it with dresses, and I thought the slightly more cropped length would go better for dresses. It's just past my waistline, but I really love the fit of this, and in fact this cardigan is probably my most loved garment that I've ever made. I really like it. I think it's because I tend to wear cardigans more anyway, and actually this colour goes really well with lots of my dresses, so absolutely ideal. I am very tempted to make another one of these and maybe do one without the lace on it, just as a nice staple v-necked cardigan to go with lots of different things. So love this cardigan. I should give you a bit of a twirl, shouldn't I, so you can see how it looks on the back. Ta-da! Don't know why I feel the need to say that all the time, but there we go. Love this. So I'm really pleased I managed to finish this off my Make 9 list. So the next thing on my Make 9 list was the Every Bit Cowl, and this is a really lovely textured knit. It's got some cables, different lacy stitches there. I have had this folded in my drawer, so it has got a fold line on it. I apologise for that. But there we go. This is knitted in some Cartref DK yarn, and I only had one skein, so I did end up omitting a few rows of the rib at the bottom of the cowl just so that I'd have plenty of yarn. But I think that this DK is quite a thick DK for a DK weight yarn, so I think that if you were doing it with other DKs that aren't quite so voluptuous, then you probably have plenty. But it is a really lovely pattern. I did think that the front of the cowl does come up very slightly, even when it's been blocked. So if you're not keen on it coming up a little bit, then perhaps don't choose this pattern. This is what it looks like on the back. It is knitted in the round, so you don't have to join it. And I will show you what it looks like on. I may have to take this hat off so that I don't get in a tangle. But I do like this shape of cowl where you've got a point at the front, because I think it fits nicely in a coat or something. But there we go. Isn't that beautiful, that pattern? And that's a really nice rich red colour as well. Cartref Yarn do some really nice rich colours in their range. I will leave a link to them in the description bar down below. I'm going to take this off because I will be getting a bit hot if I'm sat here in all the knitwear, because I will have to try some other things on as well. The next thing is another garment, and it's the V-back tee by Jamie Hoffman. And I'm going to ask Barbara to come in to show off what it looks like on her. Thank you very much, Barbara. So Barbara, like I said, is wearing the V-back tee by Jamie Hoffman, and this is a really good pattern because you can use those single skeins that you've got in your stash, and it's knitted in 3 different colours. they're actually quite close, so they blend in quite nicely. So this top one here is the standard Dyeworks in the Equinox colourway. We've got this colour here, which is a slightly muted sort of blue-green turquoise colour, and it's a Hue Loco Robin's Egg. And then this one at the bottom is a Hedgerow yarns in the Zen Garden colourway. And you can see that what I have chosen as the front has got a V shape, but you can actually wear it so that the V's at the back. I really like V-neck tops, so I chose to make it so that the V is at the front. So I omitted some of the short rows, which would have been at the round necked side of the garment, which would have accounted for any extra length you require to add for you, because you've got your bust that side. But because I'm wearing it the other way round, where the V is at the front, then the back comes up slightly longer anyway. That's why they needed to do the short rows on this side, but I omitted those because I wanted to wear it the V way round. I could easily get away with wearing the round neck as the front as well. And you can see how the colours grade through there. It is a relatively complicated pattern to follow, I think. I had to sort of read it a couple of times before I got the gist of it, but once I'd read it a couple of times it seemed to flow really well, and I would definitely knit one of these again. I really like the fact that you've got the option of a V-neck or a round neck. And one thing I did notice, that because you've got this centre increase here, it tends to sort of go between your bust. As you can see on Barbara, it's going sort of inwards. And I did find that actually if I wore a little vest top underneath, that would just stop that from going between my bust, because I didn't like the look of that. But once I put a little vest top underneath, that worked really nicely. And I did manage to get this out of 3 skeins of yarn out of the 3 single skeins that I mentioned, so that was really good because it used some of the single skeins that I'd got in my stash, and I do tend to go for turquoises, so I did have a few of the same sort of tone. So there we go, thank you very much for your help, Barbara. So next on my list was an autumnal themed little item, and it was these little acorns here. So these acorns were supposed to be knitted with Aran weight yarn, but I chose to knit them in some 4-ply yarn so that it would go in with my little garland that I'd made. So there's a few patterns that I've used for different little items that I've hung on this garland. So these were the Acorn by Kim Hamlin, and I just used some little scraps out of my stash. I think the top one was a Giddy Yarns, and this one at the bottom was some little yellow uke that I'd got in my stash from ages ago. Then I used a pattern called the Fall Leaves pattern, and this is by Michelle at the Painted Hinge. And I used a mini set, which is my autumn mini set that I've got in my shop. And there's a green and a red in there as well, so those are my autumn mini set. And then I've got 2 pumpkins that I added, and these were the Spice and Clove Knit and Crochet pumpkins by Hannah Mayer, and I joined them all together to make bunting. I basically used the same instructions as the Granny Heart bunting by Sandra from Cherry Heart, so you can go to that free pattern and find out how I did the actual cord that joins all the little items, but it is a crochet. But I was really pleased with how this came out. I actually made the leaves in 2020 and one of the pumpkins as well, but I'm really glad that I finished it off and added the acorn as well. So there we go, that's that one finished. So the last completely finished item that I got on my Make 9 list for last year was the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along, and this is the completed Mystery Knit Along pattern from last year, which I absolutely love. I was a little bit worried to start with that I wouldn't like the fact that there's so many little stitch details, but now it's all together, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. So this is called the Shawlography by Stephen West, and when I started it, it was a mystery knit along and I didn't know what it was going to look like, so it was really exciting to get a little clue every week and to be able to sort of join in with everyone making it as well. So the yarn I used is my own hand-dyed yarn, and I chose a merino cashmere nylon, so an MCN base in the 4-ply weight yarn, because I just love an MCN yarn for a shawl. They are so lovely and squishy. But I picked the MCN base because I wanted a lovely big squishy shawl, because Stephen does tend to do quite large ones as well. and I chose the colours that I use for my Fade to Grey mini set. At the moment I've only got it as a mini set, but I will be dyeing them as whole skeins. If you do want one of these colourways dyed as a whole skein, I'm very happy to do that. Just drop me an email on crafthousemagik@gmail.com and I will dye some up for you especially. But I will eventually get the colourways all on the website as well. So that's what the front of it looks like. You have this sort of ribbed section, some slip stitches, some of these crazy little loopy section, and you can actually see right through there. We've got some more slip stitches to make like a grid section, some welts along there which gives a lovely texture. These look like little Christmas trees to me, and then a bobble row just above it just makes it look like a Christmas tree. Some garter rows, some little eyelets, some brioche. Loved that brioche section. It's quite a nice, if you haven't done brioche before, because it is quite a simple brioche where you're just doing straight brioche, 2-colour brioche, well, apart from the edges where you've got some increases as well, that's a pretty easy version of brioche, because sometimes if you've got lots of increases and decreases it can be confusing. This really cool mesh section, which I absolutely love. Then we've got a stripy border around the outside. So what I did is I actually ended up putting the stripy border on back to front, but I'd done about this much, and then I actually thought, actually I prefer that to the other side. So the proper side is more defined stripes, but this one, where you've obviously got the pearl bumps where the colours change, it actually blends from one colour to another a little bit better, and I think it goes well with this section where he's done quite a similar sort of colour blending thing. So I thought, actually I really like the effect of that, I'm going to leave it, and it was good because I didn't have to unravel it then. And you might have noticed that I've actually blocked this so it's like a wobbly edge rather than a straight edge, because I just thought that added to the shape of the shawl a little bit better. So I'm really pleased I did that. So now it's all lovely and blocked, and it just really brought out the colour and the shape of it once it was blocked, and I really decided that I really liked it then. Whereas before, especially when I was doing these earlier sections, I was thinking, oh, am I going to like it when it's finished? And I think I do. So I will probably wear it either around my shoulders, like so, keep me nice and warm, and I might wear it with a shawl pin just here, and alternatively sometimes I find it easier to wear shawls if I wear them with a coat round my neck like a scarf a little bit more, because it then doesn't interfere with the coat as much, but it also shows off the beautiful patterns that are knitted into the shawl. So there we go. And I really like how that striped edge sort of shows really well when you've actually got it on like this as well. So there we are, those are the 8 items that I completely finished from my Make 9 list from last year. And I have started and actually done about half of another cardigan that I'd got on my Make 9 list. So it's going to be a bit difficult for me to show you this because it's on the needles. But this is how my Wishes cardigan by Hue Locatelli is looking at the moment. So it is knitted from the top down and is a gorgeous sort of waterfall cardigan. And I'm knitting this one in some really nice yak and silk mix that I haven't got in the shop yet, and I thought, well, I'll just try it out and see if I like it, and then I might be having some in the shop relatively soon. So I'm actually really pleased with how this is knitting up. When I've blocked my little sample, the stitches are really nice and neat once they've been blocked, although my knit stitches before it's blocked look slightly untidy, but when it's blocked I noticed that all the stitches out straightened out really nicely. And I'm trying to show you this swatch that I did, but I've actually wrinkled it up as well, but you should get the idea of how the stitches have all neatened up nicely. So for this pattern I did not get gauge, so I did the swatch in the needles that were recommended, and I'm getting 3.5 inches square instead of 4 inches. So to choose my size, what I did was I looked up the finished measurements, and I did a calculation for each of them to change it to my gauge, because I really liked how the stitches looked on this swatch. I didn't want to go up a needle size, so it made the stitches looser, because I like a relatively tight gauge anyway. But I just divided all the finished sizes by 4, which is the width and the depth that this should be, and then I multiplied it by 3.5, which was the measurement that I'm getting in my swatch, so that I then got the modified measurements using my current gauge, and then I picked my size according to those measurements. So what I did was I actually took my upper bust measurement, which is just the measurement just above your bust, to choose the size of chest, because it is quite a loose cardigan anyway, and I just chose that size. Normally what I'd do is I'd choose the size according to the upper bust measurement, and then I'd include some short rows, but because this is quite a loose garment that actually goes fluted out around here, there's no need for that. It's not a fitted one round the bust. And then I did the same calculations, divided by 4, times it by 3.5 for the arms as well, and I've just chosen the size measurement that I should knit for that. So I did make some modifications to the pattern, but so far it's looking really good, and I'm hoping to finish this in the next month or so, and then I'll be able to say that I finished my Make 9 from last year. Although I might be a bit sneaky and put it on this year's Make 9 list as well as last year's. But there we go, that's my final of my Make 9 target list for last year, and unfortunately I didn't quite finish it, but I am enjoying knitting this, and I will finish it in the next few weeks hopefully. So that's all I've got to share with you today, but I do have a little bit of footage of my little Jensen before we went for a walk yesterday in some crochet and knitting things, so I thought I'd share that with you as well. So we're all ready to go for another little walk, and how cute are those little pom-poms? These are so gorgeous. My friend Jean knitted these for him. And he has got a Christmas onesie underneath. You've got to get the wear out of them though, haven't you? So Adam's going to pop him in his little pram now. And we can tuck him in nicely with a little blanket as well, because it is really cold again. So there he is, all wrapped up nice and warm in the pushchair. And this is a gorgeous blanket that my friend Sharon made for us. Isn't that lovely? Really beautiful. So he's all tucked up, nice and warm, ready for our walk. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!